Good morning, good-looking people, and you're good-looking because you're always looking, and of course you are finding the good in everything and in everybody, and today we are finding the good in our children, in our kids. So, today's Hayom Yom is all about thinking about our children, education for our children, setting the example for our kids, and making sure we strategize for our kids. So, think about it like this. If we're preparing for a business meeting or a transaction or something that's very, very important to us, we will take as many hours as possible and spend the time and strategize and figure out who we need to speak to in order to be successful at this meeting. The same thing as it comes to our children, even more so, that we need to spend time thinking about how to raise our children, how to get them from point A to point B. And it's a grueling process. I don't know if you can see some of the gray hair. We all got it. Some of us don't have hair, whatever it may be. But the idea is that the Hayom Yom is being brought up, and which the concept of the day is just like we put on tefillin every day. And it's a very practical mitzvah. And we're involved in it. The Hayom Yom says we need to spend at least 30 minutes every day thinking of our children, helping them, strategizing with them, and giving them the tools in order to be raised as good, healthy, Hasidic mensch children, children that will grow up and be a lit candle, a shining star to the world. And the only way to do that is to constantly nurture it. It's like planting a seed and planting a garden, and every day you got to water it and you got to trim it and help it grow and make sure you keep out all the weeds and everything else that can get in the way. Let's read the Hayom Yom of the day, then I'll give you a couple of connections and we'll go to the message. So for the 22nd of Teves, my revered father, the Rebbe Rashab, once declared at a Farbrengen, and this was 1904 when this actually took place. Just as putting on tefillin every day is a scriptural commandment incumbent on every single Jew, regardless of whether he's a great Torah scholar or a simple person, so too it's an absolute obligation for every Jew to dedicate half an hour, that's 30 minutes, every day to thinking about his children's education and to do everything in his power, and indeed more than what is in his power, to see that they follow the path in which they are being guided. So it's a big task. This is a big undertaking because sometimes all we want is peace and quiet and get away from the kids. But today what the instruction is that we're dealing with precious stones. We're dealing with diamonds. They are the future of our generations, that we really need to spend that time. Homework probably counts. Paying tuition counts. But thinking about the children. And it's not only about picking the schools. You know, the school is just one part of strategizing for your kids. Whatever is in the school is being taught. If it's not being mirrored at home and being preached at home and pushed at home, it's not really going to hold. And that's the note on the day that was also being brought up, is that imagine this was the common back in 1904 and then back in the 1940s when the Hayom Yom was together. Imagine today that how much is out there, how much technology and iPhones and everything else that's there. We need to spend that much more time and be that much more involved, and probably have to drink a little bit more too as well. But eventually we have to be more involved with our kids in order to get them to the right path. And the reason why this is being brought up today, first of all, this week's Parsha is Parshas Shemos. And the beginning of the Parsha is all about the Jewish children being born in Mitzrayim. And it talks about how the midwives would save the boys, they let the girls live, and then how they would nurse them. And the idea is being that it's talking about children already being born, it's also talking about the chinuch as well, and that's the connection of the day. And also the connection to why it's being brought up to tefillin, because tefillin is a very practical mitzvah. Tefillin actually takes the heart and the mind and it connects them, and it helps them commit to God. That's the idea of tefillin. So the same thing with Jewish education. The idea of education and a good Jewish education and raising our children in the right path is to make sure that they're getting the right influences, getting the right values, both on a menschlichkeit level, to have good manners, and derech eretz, which is respect of parents and of people and of Torah, and also at the same time they have the right value system and appreciate Judaism and have a pure heart and appreciate really what kind of gift that we have. And that's also what's being brought up today. And there's the last part where we've talked about how if you take the Luach calendar, which is 383 days, and we divide it by 70, which is the average lifespan, every 4 or 5 days in the Hayom Yom corresponds to another day in a person's life. So if we look at the calendar of the day and we take 383 and divide it by 70, today actually comes out around the age of 6 years old. We were dealing with 5 years old a couple days ago. And it says in the Medrash that 6 years old is really the time that we begin to give chinuch, which is education, to our children. And that's another connection to the day. So really the message is we've got to be more involved. Sometimes it's really, really tough. And we've got some serious challenges out there with all the world and the Western world and the electronics and all the commercials and everything else that's out there. But we really need to focus. We really need to buckle down and put in that time, at least 30 minutes a day. But again, just like when you're seeding a garden and you're planting and you spend the time, eventually, God willing, once you put all that time in, you bear fruit, you bear nice trees. And essentially that's what we're doing with our children. We've got to put in the time, we've got to put in the energy, we've got to put in the gray hair. But God willing, with that and connection with God and all the schools and all the Torah learning and everything else that we do, and of course praying to tzaddikim and doing good things for the merit of our children, God willing, we will see lots of nachas, lots of Hasidic nachas from our children. Amen. Have a great week and good luck with this task.